liked the scene where Julie's daughter is climbing through the window, not to get possessions, not to get pictures, but to just get some samples of water. How did that come about?
Actually, you put Julie in my lap.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't get you to get to the house.
Yeah, I called Julie, and it was kind of a lot of phone tag. Like, she was super busy, I was super busy, and then finally, I think we talked on the phone for a couple hours, and she just told me this whole story, how her landlord had taken her keys and locked her out, yada, 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 and she's like, I want to get my story told. And I was like, well, cool, like, we'll come to Flint. And she's like, I moved out of Flint. I live 10 hours away in Indiana. So I'm like, oh, okay. So we figured it out. We distributed our funding. Elise put up the money, and we paid for her gas to come all the way, 10 hours with her family, to Flint. And because she told me on the phone that, like, the cops were like, well, we can't, like, the police department can't break into your house for you, but we can be there if you want to break into your house. Like, it's still technically yours. You know, your landlord took the keys. So we got there, like, literally, I don't use the word literally out of context. We got there literally at the exact moment that we needed to be, because we pulled up, a news crew was there, the cop cars were there, and her daughter was like shimming up the satellite thing. So Lauren just sprints. That's why that clip is, like, not very good quality. It's because we are
on an iPhone.
It's on an iPhone.
Oh my gosh.
And equipment out of the car, and, like, it all happened so fast, and we're just like, well, we got it on an iPhone. So
yeah. That was one other thing. That was probably one of my favorite interviews. But just talking to Julie, because she was talking about how, like, you know, financially it was so difficult, like, moving and having all this stress and not, like, losing so much within that home that was taken away from her. But she was so thankful to us, because she's like, if it wasn't for you guys and you, like, wanting to tell our story and wanting to help us out and spread this information, like, we would not have been able to come back and finish this water testing. And I'm like, for them, on that moment, that's when it really started to feel really real. Like, that's when I felt like we were doing something, because it's a little tricky. We had a few people who, like, they would ask us, like, okay, so what's your film actually going to do? Like, how is this going to change anything? Because they've been beaten down, and they've faced so much hardship that, you know, even any stranger, with no matter their intention, like, they kind of approach them with, yeah, but what are you going to actually be able to do? Because they've been so disheartened. So in that moment, I felt like we were actually able to do something and make a difference. Even though, like, we were telling her story, and sometimes when you go into that, you're like, am I taking advantage of this person's story? But then, like, you actually talk to them, and they're like, no, thank you, this is what we need. We need to publicize this. And that's when it felt, like, really powerful to me. That was the moment that got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the a big thing that we focus on as a class project was ethical media making. You know, not using these people's stories to get publicity or to, you know, oh, there's more views on it because we're highlighting the negative effects or anything, but we're like, we really want to show that this community is standing up and is resilient and is fighting this bigger power, and, you know, it's their story. And so, like, did you guys have any challenges with that? Because I know it's hard to get to eliminate your perspective and to eliminate your biases that you bring around continuously, you know? So
yeah. I think our one moment, the blood drive, is what I'm thinking of. We were in Flint for a really long day, and this guy, Austin Healy, he oversees Americans for Flint, the group, and we kind of, like, found this event that his group was hosting, and so he gave us an itinerary of all the stuff that was going on in Flint, and he's like, you know, just go to any of them, like, it'll be bring your camera equipment, people will be willing to talk to you, blah, blah. So there was one that was like a blood drive, and so we're like,
so like people going in and getting their blood tested and, like, you know, worrying about lead in their blood.
We thought it was going to be like this. I mean, we had seen it on the news and stuff and seen it on the internet, like this big, long line of just people coming in and getting their blood tested. We got there, and it was just a very intimate group of maybe 5 or 6 people, not even.
There were, like, 3 volunteers and then 2 people in the waiting room.
And so we talked to the volunteers, and they're like, yeah, like, if people want to talk to you, you just can't go back in the room. But if you want to sit out in the waiting room here, people want to talk to you, that's fine. Like, we don't have a problem with that. And so we kind of sat there for a minute, and then this grandpa and his little 5-year-old son came in, and I just was like, I feel like we're ambushing these people. They're just coming to get their blood tested. They don't want a camera or a microphone shoved in their face. they're coming to see if their child or their grandchild has lead poisoning. And so Elise and I just kind of looked at each other, and we kind of looked at the rest of the crew, like, let's just leave. Yeah. So I think that was one of the moments where it was like, it might have been like a really interesting thing to put in the film, but it would have been very like guerrilla tactic, like hiding a camera when people aren't expecting it. And so and that was another thing with like going into people's homes. It was like we had to be very cautious of like, okay, you are aware that you're on camera, or going to the women's shelter, like we were very cautious of, okay, we're not going to get these women who are in the shelter put their face, not try and put them on there as much as possible, just because, you know, they're in a women's shelter. And so that was something that we had to be very cautious of in the post-production process, was being careful of who and what kind of stories were going in this film. But
yeah, for sure.